This is Senior Algebra, Section 6.2b, factoring, this time by guess and check method. So, last time we did factoring by grouping. Today we're doing factoring by guess and check here. You're going to be allowed to do both methods here, and we'll talk about which method would be better in certain situations here. So, if I remember here, I started with x squared plus 14x plus 48, and I'm going to give you the answer, x plus 6, x plus 8. And remember where our terms come from here. We FOIL it. Remember, that's the first, outer, inner, last. I multiply the first terms together. I distribute twice, basically. And we end up with x squared plus 14x plus 48. So the key things that I want to look at here. Where does the 14x come from? Where does the 48 come from here? So the 48, that comes from multiplying the last terms together here, 6 and 8. The 14x, well, that comes from the middle terms being added together. So 8x, that was from the outside ones, 8 and x there. And the inside terms, was a 6x from 6 and x here. So when we do our factoring here, we're going to kind of use those ideas here to guess and check our way to the answer. So we start with x squared plus 14x plus 48 here. So I write in descending order, I move the greatest common factor if possible. So I'm going to write all the factors of the first term. So I look at the first term, it's x squared. Remember, there's a 1 in front here. Well, what multiplies to x squared? Well, it's going to be x and x. For all the ones today, they're pretty easy this way in that it's always going to be x and x here. So now, in number 3, it says, I look for clues about whether the signs inside the binomials are positive or negative. So I'm looking at this, and I look at the first thing, the 48. It's a positive 48. So remember, where did I get the 48 from? That was from 6 and 8. So how do I get a positive 48? Either it's two negatives multiplied together to give you a positive, or two positives. So which one is it, two negatives or two positives? Well, I look at the middle term, 14x. That's a positive, so it has to be two positives there. So now I'm going to look at the last term and write all the possible factors of 48. So what things multiply together to give you 48? Well, that's going to be what? 1 in 48, 2 in 24, 3 in 16, 4 in 12, and 6 and 8. Now, if I look, these are both positive here, so all of these numbers are going to be positives. So when I take, and if I was to guess and check and put, let's say, 1 in 48 in, I would do 1 times x is 1x, 48 times x is 48x. When I combine them together, I would get 49x. Well, I look at my middle term here. I want the middle number to be 14 here. So what numbers here will add to 14? Well, that's going to be 6 and 8 here. So it's going to be x plus 6, x plus 8. Doesn't matter which one goes first. In this case, no. So in example 2, I'm going to start off. There's nothing to remove, so it's x squared. We know my first term is going to be x times x. So then I look at my last term, positive 12 here. That means that either it's going to be a positive positive or a negative negative. Okay, which one is it? Well, it could be negative negative because a negative times a negative is a positive here. But I look at my middle term here. That's positive. Well, how am I going to get that? Well, it has to be two positives added together give you a positive here. So it is plus plus. So now let's write the factors of 12 here. So I'm going to start smallest to greatest, 1 and 12. They are both positive here. 2 and 6, 3 and 4 here. So, which ones will add to my middle term here? Well, 3 and 4. 3 plus 4 is 7 here. So, I guess that it's going to be this. Now, I can check it just to make sure here. And you can do this in your head. So, I take x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 4 is 12. So, with the ability to check your answer, you should be able to see if you make a mistake here. Notice when I add my two middle terms together, I get 7x. So it's x squared plus 7x plus 12. Yeah, that is what I started with, so I know that x plus 3, x plus 4 is the factors of those. So I'm going to start with B now. Okay, I'm going to look at the same thing here. X squared. Okay, that's going to be x times x. Now the 24, it's a positive 24. Again, what does that mean? Either it's minus minus, because a negative times a negative is a positive, or it's plus plus. So either it's two positives or two negatives here. That's the only way I can get a positive number, because we're going to multiply here. Well, which one is it? Look at your middle term here. Your middle term is a negative 10x. Well, can I add two positives and get a negative 10? No. So I know that it has to be two negatives here. So it's going to be x minus something, x minus something. Since it's two negatives here, I can just write all of my negative factors here. Negative 1 times negative 24 is a positive 24. So all these are going to be negative. 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6 here. What do I want? I want two numbers that will combine to give me a negative 10. Well, negative 1 and negative 24. Well, that's a negative 25. Nope. What about negative 2, negative 12? Nope, that's negative 14. Negative 3 and negative 8? No, but negative 4 and negative 6, when I add those together, gives me a negative 10. I'm going to go ahead and check my answer just to make sure again. So I have x squared minus 6x minus 4x plus 24. Notice my middle term becomes a negative 10x. So we are correct here. The answer is x minus 4 and x minus 6. So now in C, we have x squared plus 4x minus 12. So again, I have x squared. That's going to be x times x. And now I look at my last term.
The following students have messages in the athletic office. Michaela Blakesley, Aaron Bolger. The following students, please report to
Still
the
more announcements.
Colin Klug, Sarah Malone, Robert Legatsky, Katie Peters, Ben Stotts, Sophia Liu, Paul Ziegler, and Annika Johnson. Please report to the office at this time. And Ben Holman.
Oh my gosh,
Please
still
report
more.
to the office.
So what I did is I looked, it's a negative 12, so that means that one has to be positive, one has to be negative. And I want the middle term to add to 4x. So I wrote all the factors out. both positives and negatives here. Notice it is 2 and 6, but I have two options here, negative to a positive 6 or positive to negative 6. Notice if I pick the second one, I get a negative 4. Okay, when I pick minus 2 and plus 6, yep, that would work because I get a positive 4x. So in D, I have a negative 48. That means that, what, one has to be negative, one has to be positive. Now, right now, it doesn't matter which one is negative or positive. Okay, it will later when we start adding coefficients that are not 1. So now I'm going to write down the factors of 48. Now again, what I'm looking at is this. Can I kind of cut down on this? Can I get better guesses here? So if I look, it's a negative 13. Well, I know that I want, what, more negatives than positives. So I don't need to write when the positives are bigger. So I'm just going to write all my ones where the positive number is smaller, the negative number is larger here. So if I look, it's a negative 13. Okay, well, 3 and negative 16, that adds to negative 13. Now, you could definitely cross those two out here. 4, negative 12, 6, and negative 8. And here's why. If I wanted a negative 13, I know that the negative number has to be bigger than negative 13. Because a negative number plus a positive number gives you a smaller negative. Negative 16 and 3 is a negative 13. The negative becomes closer to 0. If I look at 4 and negative 12, well, that would give me a negative 8. 6 and negative 8, that gives me a negative 2, so that really wouldn't work. The only possibility would be ones that are bigger than negative 13 to start. So in example 3, I'm going to factor by guess and check, and the first thing I should always do, look, can I factor out a number or even a variable here? So I pull out a 6, and now I'm going to factor this here. I have x squared, again, that's x times x. Now, the last term, a negative 15. Okay, so that means what? How do I get a negative when I multiply? One has to be positive, one has to be negative. So now I'm going to write all the factors of negative 15. Now again, I want the negative to be larger. So I'm just going to write the factors where the negative is larger. Negative 15 and 1, negative 5 and 3. If I look at the first one, negative 15 and 1, that gives me negative 14. Nope, not what I wanted. But the second one, negative 5 and positive 3, if I was to FOIL that out, my middle term would be minus 2x, or a negative 2x. So that's my answer here. Notice negative 5x, positive 3x is a negative 2x there. So the last one, things I'm looking at here. Can I take out a number? I have 4. But I also look, I have an x cubed, an x squared, and an x. So I'm going to pull out a 4 and an x. When I do that, on the inside I have x squared plus 5x plus 4. So let's write our two binomials here. X squared, that's going to be x and x. So now I look, I have a positive 4. What does that mean? Either it's going to be plus plus or minus minus. Look at your middle term. Oh, it's plus, so it has to be two positives. Well, what are the only two factors of 4? 4 and 1, 2 and 2. Which of those add to 5? Oh, 4 and 1. So we know that it's going to be x plus 4, x plus 1.